Erev Tov Chevra, it's Shabbos soon. Got another few hours to go. I've just finished work. I'm sitting here relaxing, and I'm reflecting on who I am, where I've been, and where I'm going. And I thought I thought about recording myself like I'm doing right now, because the ego in me wants to make a YouTube channel. And I've been, wherever I found 5-10 minutes, I've spent that time over the last 6 months or so researching what's involved in actually doing exactly that. From editing a video, from recording it, from uploading it, from scripting it, and it's a huge subject. It's massive. It's like trying to create your own TV station. You need a lot of resources in terms of time, not finances, although you do need to buy equipment. But if you're like me and you're stretched for time, then it's a slow endeavour. But I've been watching videos on what people do and how they've done it. And the real opportunity really is to get to the point where you've built an audience and you can monetize it to get what we call parnasa, an income. So I thought I would open up a video and do a free format chat without scripts and basically explain who I am and what I'm about, and what I want to do with the rest of my life. I'm 58. I'm currently living in England. I am Jewish, and I suppose you could describe me as a Baalei Teshuva, although I don't like labels. I'm just me, I'm just Jewish. Although I do have a deep interest in my religion and my people, my history, and my faith, and I've come to know God, and I love Him, and I sometimes feel He doesn't love me. Do you? He does. He loves me. I insist on it. I do have a chat from him. I use a bit of chutzpah. Can't help it. I do like to have a chat with him. And there was a time, to be honest with you, when I hated him. I hated him because I felt as if he'd put me into a particular position in life that I couldn't blame anybody else apart from him. But that he was playing games with me. But I've come to realise that, well, I said it to my rabbi once. I said to him, Daf Yomi, Kiddushin 12, it says. I said to my rabbi once that I hate him. I hate God. I'm a God hater. And he said, well, that's a good thing. And I said, how's that a good thing? How can that be a good thing? And he says, well, it's evidence that you believe in him. Stumped me. I thought, okay, all right, I can accept that, because I do believe in him. But the commandment is to love and fear him, right? So eventually I came to love him. How did I come to love him? I started learning. I started out on a process of learning his book, his Torah, and I came at it from a very, very secular position. I didn't know anything. I knew smoked salmon bagels. That's what I knew. I had a bar mitzvah. I went to a Hebrew school. I had my Brit. I had all that. Rites of passage. I even went to Israel when I was 18. I love Israel. I have a passion for it. I've even bought myself an apartment there for when I'm ready to make Aliyah. But I came at my faith just like a regular feral Jew, running the streets. And not knowing anything, not learning anything, but just knowing my place. I'm Jewish. That was it. Knowing that what my history was, what the history of our people has been. The very high level stuff. The Exodus, Moses, Hanukkah, Purim, Holocaust. Those big things, certain events that basically repeat themselves year after year, what they call the Chagim, festivals. that tend to repeat themselves over and over again. Some you love, some you hate. Some you go along and you do it that make you feel a bit Jewish, like eating matzah and Pesach. Although, you know, if you're secular and you don't really know what it's all about, then you might go out and have a bit of toast. Or even eat treif, God forbid. But, you know, that's where I was at a long time ago. Hanukkah comes round. Who doesn't like Hanukkah? You light the candles. You say a bracha. You don't know why you say it, but you do it. But, you know, you rub your hands because donuts. Hamantashen. You know, that's what it was about when I was a kid. And that's what I kind of grew up knowing into my senior years. Same with Purim. You know, Hamantashen. Those kind of things, which basically the nice festivals, if you like. The hard ones, like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Oi, why I want to eat. You know, I'm quite happy to go without food all year round, but come Yom Kippur, I've got to eat. That was one of them. Do you know what I mean? Like a dafka. They call it dafka. But I found myself like woefully uneducated, and I found myself at a crossroads in life when my mother passed away about 12 years ago. Some say that the bereavement is a gateway into Judaism, if you're Jewish. That is, you know, it's one of the doorways. It's a gate. It's an entrance point. And I found myself at the cemetery, having my clothes ripped, and being told that to go to shul the next day. I thought, what for? He says to say Kaddish. I said, well, I've got to say Kaddish. I knew what Kaddish was, but it was for other people, right? I've got to say it. Yes, you've got to say it every day for 11 months. Every day. Wow. So I went. You know, it's the last thing you can do for your mother, you know. She's gone. But putting tefillin on and saying a prayer in her memory, what's actually what they call the prayer for the dead, but in actual fact it's a prayer for life. I didn't know that at the time, but I subsequently learned that it's a prayer for life. Saying that was the last thing I could do for my mum, and I learned that it was a prayer that could help her on her way. And yeah, I can hear people think, I don't believe in that nonsense, but it doesn't matter. You believe in it. You don't have to believe in it. I believe in it because it was my mum, right? That's why I believed in it, because it's my mum. Simple as that. Whether it's right or wrong, I don't know. But I wanted to say Kaddish for her. So I went. I made a lot of mistakes. I used to hate getting there late in the morning, you know, so I always got there early. And I had a couple of experiences along the way which served as triggers to learn. One of them was discovering a book called Pirkei Avot. I shall do a review on these books from time to time, because I've got so much I want to share, you know, about my journey, about what I've learned along the way. Another experience I had was that I met my first Dayan. You know, you got a rabbi. Well, there's a Dayan. A Dayan's bigger than a rabbi. Well, he's not bigger. He's just got a different role. But a Dayan is a judge. And we had this judge, his name is Dayan Erentru. He came to our synagogue to commemorate the service of our president that had been in his role for 25 years. And to commemorate that service, they purchased and bought a brand new Sefer Torah. I didn't think no big deal. So what? The Basar Sefer Torah. I turned up for the actual event and they were dancing in the street with it. I thought, what's going on here? And I learned that the people that had contributed to pay for this Sefer Torah had just been up to the house to sign off to write the last letters in this Sefer Torah, to inaugurate it. And they marched down the street under the chuppah with this Sefer Torah, dancing and singing in the streets. I've actually got a video of it somewhere. But I arrived at shul at the time they were coming down the road, and I thought, wow, what's going on here? Nobody told me it was going to be like this. I found myself inside the shul, and this Dayan Erentru stood in the pulpit and he gave a sermon for half an hour, non-stop talking. It reminded me of when I was a little boy listening to the rabbi in those days, Rabbi Singer. He used to do the same thing on a Shabbos. He used to talk non-stop for half an hour, and I didn't know what he was on about either. But all I could hear from this Rabbi Aronshru, that Dayan Aronshru, was Torah, 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 Torah. It didn't go like that, but it sounded like that to me, because the only word that I understood, well, I didn't understand it. I just know it. I recognised it. You know, you learn things when you're a kid, like Talmud Torah, Torah classes, Torah this, Torah that. You don't know what it is. You just run around playing in the park, outside playing football. You go around the back and smoke fags with the older boys. I didn't know anything at Cheder. But here's this Dayan Aronshru standing in the pulpit going on about the Torah. Torah, 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 half an hour Torah, 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 Torah. I turned around to this fellow that was sitting next to me, and I said, "Why did you keep saying Torah for?" And he looked at me and he said, "Marty, that's the reason. That's what it's all about. It's about the Torah." That moment was like it was an eye-opener. I thought, it is? I thought, of course it is. It's got to be. You know, I knew about Mount Sinai. I knew that God gave us the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai, but I didn't know the 10 Commandments were the Torah. Didn't know that. So, you know, I came at it from a very uneducated point of view. And I realised at that stage in my life, I didn't know anything. I thought I knew everything. Smoked salmons and bagels, that's what's there to know. Plenty to know, I'll tell you. So I suddenly acquired this thirst. I had to know. I had to know what was in it. And I do remember, like, you know, the parshas from week to week when I was a kid. You know, I remembered certain ones, like, you know, like Cain and Abel. Who doesn't know about that? Well, I do know about Cain and Abel, but I didn't know about Cain and Abel. Noah. I knew about Noah and the animals went in 2 by 2. Hurrah! I knew that. I knew things like that. I knew that there was a flood. Genesis, and God created the earth in 6 days. That's it. 7th day he rested. I knew that. To me, it was just a delightful story. And once you'd heard it, you heard it. That was it. I didn't need to hear it again. You know, then came Abraham, then Isaac, and Jacob. I'm familiar with the names, but I didn't know who they were. And then came Moses. Well, I knew who Moses was. I mean, my name was Moses. Moshe ben Avraham, that's my name. Which is another story. But I started to realise I didn't know anything. And yet I was going to shul every day, except Shabbos, to say Kaddish for my mum. And I didn't want to go on a Shabbos, because I didn't want people to think that I'd been brainwashed in some way. You know, I didn't want people to say, look, they've got him. They've got him. He's been got. I didn't want that, because I'd heard that sort of saying before. And I didn't want people to think that I was weak-willed or weak-minded in some way. Because my endeavour was to do something for my mum. It was the last thing I could do for her. And I felt as if basically saying Kaddish for her was my last gift or blessing to her, my gesture of love, an apology for not being a great son. I could have been a better son, you know, that kind of thing. And so I purposely didn't go to shul on Shabbos for a year, because, you know, I wanted them in a roundabout way to think that at the end of the 11 months, when he finishes saying Kaddish for his mum, that's it, we won't see him again. He'll be off. He'll be one of those that goes. And that's what I wanted them to think. But on the last day of the Kaddish, it was my first day of going to shul on Shabbos. That Shabbos I went to shul. And I turned up and they were like, way, Mazel Tov, Martin, lovely to see you, lovely, coming in. That was it, great crowd. And I thought, you stupid fool, you could have gone to shul for a whole year, for a whole 11 months, and you chose not to. That's how daft I am, how stupid, what they call tum tam. I'm an idiot. But, you know, that's where I was coming from. A tum-tam level, an uneducated level. And so I began a journey of learning. And these podcasts, these videos I'm going to make is about my learning. and the journey I've been on, and what you could possibly expect if you ever find yourself on a similar path. And I'm not advocating that you get on that path, that is, although it is a sweet path. It is a path of if you like, if you want to use the word righteousness, it is righteous. It's a righteous path. It's a clean path. It's a holy path. It's a peaceful path. It's settling. It's a very nice path, and I recommend it. But everyone's got their own journey. This is just me sharing my journey with other like-minded people, and you're very welcome to ask questions and make comments and share information from which you think I will prosper or benefit from, and I'm going to do the same in return. But where am I? Where I'm at? Well, just where I'm at the moment is I am currently learning a daily learning program, and although I used to do one chapter a day, I'm actually doing 3 chapters a day. I've got my 3 chapters to finish off today, but this is it's here. Here it is. This is a publication called Bein Oni. Right, this is this week's. It's sort of Sunday, and we start a new one, and every 4 weeks or so, I get about 4 of these come through the post. These pamphlets, if you want to call them pamphlets, they're booklets. There's 2 types. There's class of 2 types. There's 1 chapter a day, and there's 3 chapters a day. I'm on the 3 chapters a day, but inside it is a whole load of weekly or daily learning, and that's what I do. I learn from it. But it took me a long time to get to this particular stage. You've got to be fairly dedicated, committed to it, to the learning program. Otherwise, it's a complete and utter waste of money. But it takes a whole year to complete a cycle of learning of what they call the Mishnah Torah, which is a 14 volumes of text written by a rabbi called the Rambam. Rabbi, what's his name? Maimonides. Rabbi Maimonides, right? And Rabbi Moshe Maimonides. And he was a 10th century rabbi, born in Spain, migrated to Egypt, and became the physician to the king of Egypt around the time of the Crusades. And he was the physician to the king of Egypt, and he was quite a brilliant man. He was also a bit of a philosopher, and he was influenced to a certain degree by the Greeks. However, he wrote a series of texts which became known as the Mishnah Torah in response to a community in Yemen who were quickly assimilating or being forced to convert by the Arabs of that land at that time. And the Yemenites had been, the Yemenite Jews had previously had 2 kingdoms that had lasted 100 years each, and they settled in that area 2,000 years beforehand, or 2,000 years ago from around about now, something like that. Or in other words, they'd been in Yemen for about 2,000 years, and they were a fairly isolated community, cut off from the rest of the Jewish world, except that somehow the Rambam had a connection to them, and he saw that they were assimilating. They were dwindling in numbers, and they were being converted to Islam by the Muslims. So he wrote a series of letters to them, which became known as the Mishnah Torah. And from what I can understand and from what I can gather, the reason why they were assimilating is because they never received the oral law. Now that's another subject, right? But the oral law, at a very high level, background to it was that it was forbidden to be written down. But after about 1,500 years from Mount Sinai, it was written down. Only the Yemenites didn't get it. They didn't get the text, and that was called the Mishnah, right? And the Mishnah was a set of 6 books, 6 Sepharim, which were used, or which was the subject matter for a group of rabbis who discussed it, and it was captured and recorded in what they call the Gemara. And the Ammonites never got hold of it, so they didn't know the oral law. They only knew the Torah law. But the Rambam extracted the bottom line from the Gemara and produced the Mishnah Torah. And the Mishnah Torah was a series of letters to the leaders of the people in Yemen. And so the people in Yemen went by the Rambam 100%. And these series of letters, the Mishnah Torah, saved them as a community. They continued to worship Hashem in their isolated situation until they were rescued by the Israeli government in 1952, I think it was, or between 48 and 52. They had a prophecy. They believed in a prophecy that they would one day be airlifted by a metal bird and taken to Jerusalem, and that's exactly what happened. The Israeli government went in and lifted them out in airplanes, silver airplanes, which is another story. Anyway, this Mishnah Torah has become, when he wrote it, there was it caused a few riots, and there was some burning of this book in Europe because they saw that he was crossing the line in a few red lines in some areas, but nevertheless the book survived, and it's become a core text for learning, although there are some caveats in the text altogether. And my favourite is a book called Hilchot Diot, which is all about what they call the midot, which is your behaviour, your behavings, it's the way you act. And since some people would have described me in the past as a rough diamond. Some people say, no, you're more like a very, very, very rough diamond. You're not even a diamond, you're just very rough. But anyway, the Torah is all about that. It's all about fixing your behaviour. That's one of the things that you learn, and amongst others, and you discover certain indicators which basically point you down a particular path, what they call the derech. And as you begin to recognise that this derech exists, and you become familiar with the starting point, you begin to move along it. And as you move along it, you acquire further learnings, and you discover that there's other people that have been there before you. And you realise that all the ones that are very religious have been there before you a long time ago, and you learn from them. And some people don't like the Haredim. I love them. I personally have learnt a lot from them. I understand where they're coming from and where they're going to. And I also love secular. I haven't got an issue with secular. I would still consider myself to be fairly secular. I'm not ashamed of it, and I'm not ashamed to be on the derech either, because there are times when I fall off the derech. You'll learn that there's a saying in Mishlei, a book which was written by King Solomon, on it's also known as Proverbs, the book of Proverbs. In that book, he said that a tzaddik falls several times. Now, a tzaddik could be described as a saint, and a saint, somebody that's a saintly nature, somebody that's very, very, very religious, a very, very refined midot, behaviour characteristics, traits, and they also slip up from time to time. So if they do, so how much more so for a secular person, an ordinary person, a non-religious person? We all do. We're only human beings. We're not angels. So some people basically never really fix their behavioural traits, but they try, and that's the objective, is to try and improve. So I consider the Torah to be a massive, massive improvement program, a self-improvement program. That's what it is for me, is to get better, to fix myself. And if you fix yourself, then it stands to reason that if everybody did it, we'd fix the world, right? That's what they call tikkun olam. But before you can fix the world, you've got to fix yourself. That's the idea behind it. And so I learn. I learn, and I've built up a big library of books. I've got quite a lot. I mean, more than I'll probably ever be able to read in my lifetime. But I do what I can, and I learn as much as I can. And so from time to time, I'm going to make videos on what it is that I'm learning. Currently, right, I haven't got a great memory. I can find myself reading. I can read a page and think, well, I've just read a page and nothing went in. I don't even remember what I wrote or what I read. So I'll go back and read it again. I force myself to read it again. I still don't remember it once I've read it a second time, but I find myself maybe 6 months, 6 years, 8 years down the road, it suddenly coming out in conversation. I'm thinking, how did I remember that? That's what it's about. So the objective really is to keep on track, not to fall behind. You fall behind, you fall off that path. And I've done 3 Rambam before, and I got 7 months into it, and I suddenly hit a brick wall and I couldn't do any more. I had to stop. And then I had another go a few years later. I thought, right, I'm going to have another go, where I was doing one Rambam a day, and I was doing okay. And then all of a sudden, it came to an end of the series. And the reason why is because when you do 1 chapter a day, it takes 3 years to complete it. When you do 3 Rambam a day, it takes 1 year to complete it. So I started it at the point where there was only about 4 or 5 months left of a 3-year cycle, and it came to an end. And it also came to an end with the 3 Rambam. And so my friend, sorry, beg your pardon, it was the other way around. I was into doing 1 Rambam a day, and somebody said to me that the 3 Rambam has come to an end and they're starting another cycle. Do you want to do it? And I thought, you know what, yeah, I'll do it. So I switched from 1 Rambam a day to 3 Rambam. I'm not too sure how many Sepharim, how many books we've completed, but it feels like 4 or 5. I shall check it out in a minute, but I think I've probably been reading it for about 4 months. So it stands to reason that there's about 8 months left. Nevertheless, we're in a Sefer at the moment. It's called Sefer Zerayim Hilchos Kaleim. This is all about planting foods, and in the last 24 hours, it's about donating to the poor, giving a share of the produce that's been left behind in a field or on the edges of a field for the poor to come along behind you and feed themselves. You know, it's all about that. It's the laws of that, and I find it very interesting, because that's one thing I want to do in Israel, is basically buy a plot of land and grow things. I've had an allotment in England in the past, and I've grown things here, but the difference here is that it's what they call achutz la'eretz. It's outside Israel, and the laws don't apply outside Israel. They only apply inside Israel. So in order to perform those laws, you've got to do it in Israel. So I've got a property, and I'd like to buy another bit of land. So I'm looking for a small bit of land, and I'm thinking in particular that I'd like to build or grow or plant an orchard. Now, I was looking at something the other day. I don't know if I've got them here, but I want to see. This is the kind of thing that basically appeals to me. There's some drawings. The Rambam's done some drawings here. Here they are. I don't know if you can see them. But before I show you these, there's another thing that I'm also interested in, is sewing. I sell haberdashery. I've got some sewing machines. And one of the things I want to do is actually make quilts, quilt covers. And a quilt cover is made of blocks. And these drawings that I'm going to show you are of gardens that the Rambam has drawn, which shows the layout that is acceptable from a halachic point of view, which is according to the Jewish law, right? It's what you can and you can't do. And these gardens, if you like, look exactly like a block on a quilt. So this is what I'm going to do. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see. There's one. See that layout? If I can come up a bit higher, that's one layout. Oh, there you go. That's one layout. I think that's quite nice, that one. I like that one. And there's some comments there. Of course, it's the other way around. Maybe you can see that, I don't know. Then over here, there's another one. That's also nice. That's a nice one too. And then there's another one there on my finger. It's a slightly different layout. And I think with the white spots, the white blocks are where you don't plant anything, but where the shaded are, you can plant different species, but you cannot mix the species together in the same garden. So this is a way of ensuring that they're not sitting next to each other. That's something like that anyway. I'd have to reread the text again. But I want to buy a plot of land in Israel, in Severia, and I want to plant according to these garden shapes. So I only need a small bit of land really to comply, and also want to sew some quilt covers in that sort of shape, put the spiritual dimension to it. I just think it'd be a nice endeavour, and it'll enable me to actually do mitzvahs that you couldn't normally do, right? So I can tick them off if you like. You know, that's where I'm at. But so every day I'll do some learning, and I'm hoping to actually, if I've got the time, I want to touch base from time to time when I'm inspired to actually talk about what it is that I've been reading. And this is not the only text that I do. I also do another one which they call Tanya. That's a daily learning program, and of course I do the Torah itself. Plus I've got a whole load of books of Gemara at home. I'm currently in the middle of, well, I've got about 3 days worth of the Megillah left, Masechet Megillah, and I bought a lot of other books recently. One all about the laws of transactions. It's based on what they call Bava Kama, which is basically another Gemara, but it's more of a fun sort of text. It gives you an example. Jaime's sitting in shul, right? And he takes his glasses off and he puts them on his shawl next to him. In comes Mordechai, and he hasn't seen Jaime for a long time. Jaime, my friend! He comes running over to him and he sits on the glasses and breaks them. Who's to blame? Who's to pay for them? Who's to compensate? It asks questions like that. What do you think? Is it Jaime or is it Mordechai? I love those kind of questions, right? They're good discussion points. But I've been rabbiting on for about 32 minutes. I'm going to try and edit this down. But just to recap, the purpose of the video, the channel, is to share my thoughts and my experiences on what I've learned and what the Torah says about certain matters. I'm quite happy to ask questions or answer questions that you may have on how I handle certain issues. Because I'm not the best performing Jew. I'm not the best behaved Jew. I promise you, I'm not. I've got my father isn't Jewish. My mother is, but I went to Hebrew school. I had my Brit. I had my bar mitzvah in an Orthodox shul, and my father couldn't really teach me anything, and it's the reason why I am where I am in life. Really, I'm having to teach myself, because that I learned is one of the commandments according to the Rambam. If you didn't have anybody to teach you and you were deprived in some way, lacking in privilege, then it still does not remove the commandment from the fact that you need to learn it. You have to learn it according to the Rambam, and therefore if there's nobody to teach you, you've got to teach yourself. You have to learn it. So it says somewhere in Hilchot Teshuvah, which is another word which we'll discuss and in future videos. So I'll love you and leave you. It's Erev Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom, and I'll touch base with you again early next week. Thanks very much. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Give me some likes, right? It'll push the video further up the search results, and I'll be able to monetize it and get parnasa from it. You scratch my back and I'll scratch yours, right? And subscribe so that you don't miss on future videos. Nachon, betech nachon. Toda rabah lachem.